You only get one life, so it's important to make the most of it. Is it possible to achieve both happiness and success in life? I've been thinking about this for 20 years. And I know that being busy isn't the answer. So how does life work? There are 10 components that make up a successful life. They all fit together, so if one of the parts is weak, then everything slows down. The objective is to enjoy and achieve as much as you can. Live your maximum life. So if the meaning of life is to enjoy and achieve, is there a trade-off between the two? If we have more enjoyment, will that mean less achievement? Or if we have more achievement, will that mean less enjoyment? Or can we do both? And I think we can certainly think of things that contribute to both. So, for example, playing in a band might be enjoyable and give you a sense of achievement. But I think we know that if we go for maximum achievement, that could mean that we might have to sacrifice a bit of enjoyment, a bit of quality of life. I've been thinking about this trade-off between enjoyment and achievement. And I have got a graph here that shows achievement against what I've called quality of life. And I'm going to draw it for you now. And I think this will help you to think about where you want to be in your life. So, what we've got here is we've got one axis, which is the amount that you achieve. And then we've got the horizontal axis here, which I'm going to call quality of life. It's really enjoyment. And the question would be, what shape is this graph as you turn up the wick on the amount you do? So before I draw my big graph, I just want to explain why it is what it is. So if you look in any book on stress, it will tell you that if you have a graph of how much stress from, let's say, from 0 to 10, and then against that you plot the amount that you achieve, you'll find they'll draw a little graph like this with a peak at about 7. So what happens is that as you turn up the wick and you do more and more and you push yourself, your achievement goes up until it gets to a peak. And then beyond that, between 7 and 10, achievement drops back off again because you're just too stressed out and you're not coping and you're falling apart. And that would make you think perhaps that you want to be at 7. But do you? Because would you be happy being at the limit of 7? So I think there's a second graph which looks like this, which is quality of life against stress. Again, we've got 0 to 10 on the stressometer. And I think the second one would look like this, with a peak at about 3. So I think maximum quality of life is when you're only at about 3 out of 10 in terms of the pressure you're putting on yourself. You don't want to be at 0, you'd be completely bored. But you don't want to be higher than 3 because your quality of life starts to drop off as you're feeling more stressed. So, if you combine these two graphs into one, you can get a graph of quality of life against achievement. And I fed this into an Excel spreadsheet ages ago and was quite amazed when this is what came out. If you think about it, this graph actually is correct. So what we've got here is, in terms of the stressometer, if we start at 0, this is us just doing nothing, so, just sitting around, total couch potato, we're not achieving anything, we probably don't enjoy it very much. Then we're moving up here to sort of 1 and 2, and this is like a lazy weekend or something like that, where the quality of life, it's not bad actually, but we're not really achieving anything. And we're moving up here to number 3. So number 3 is maximum quality of life. This might be where we're on holiday or something like that. And, we're achieving a little bit. We're perhaps exploring the island on a moped or something like that. Or this might be us doing a really easy job. And I mentioned one of my career options was just to do a really easy job and have fun outside. And that would be quality of life maximum, but not achieving very much. Now we go into the trade-off zone. So between 3 and 7, what's happening is that we are increasing our achievement, but we're reducing our quality of life. So as we go up here, we're trading off achievement versus quality of life until we get to our maximum achievement point up here, where we're at 7. And you can see we've had to sacrifice, we're down to only a medium quality of life now because of having to work long hours. So something like going up the corporate ladder, you'd have to be much more at 7 than you would at 3. So you're working longer hours, you're doing perhaps some things you don't agree with because your boss wants you to do them and all that sort of thing. And as a self-employed person, I've got to also think about, do I want to be at 3 or 7? Because when I'm at 3, I'm not doing very much work, but I'm on holiday a lot and I'm having fun. But if I turn up the wick to 7, I achieve a lot more, but my quality of life's not so good because I'm spending the whole time driving around the country and staying in hotels in the evenings and working really hard. So I've got this trade-off between 3 and 7, and I've got to decide where I want to be. Now, 8, 9 and 10 carry on like this. And you could see that now we're at the right hand end of these two original graphs. So by the time we get down to 10, you can see that our achievement has dropped right off because we're so stressed, but also our quality of life is right down to pretty much 0 as well because we're so stressed. And we really don't want to be above 7 because it starts to be a bad idea. If you're trying to build a company or if you're trying to go up the corporate ladder, if you find yourself going around to 8 or 9 because there's just so much work to be done, the ridiculous thing is you could be achieving the same amount over here at 5 or 4. You could achieve the same amount and you could have massively more quality of life because here you're just an overstressed, busy fool. You're probably not sleeping, all sorts of problems. And if you're not careful, you can actually spiral down here as well. You can get into a loop of not sleeping and, possibly drinking or whatever else, and it can be really bad for you. So we don't want to be beyond 7. And some organisations think that if they push their people up to 8 or 9, they'll get more out of them. But actually, they achieve less. Maximum achievement is at 7. So, looking at this graph, it seems to me obvious that we don't want to be beyond 7. We might have to go there for a very short blip and work a week or 2 or perhaps a month really hard, but it's not sustainable to be at 8 or 9. And we also don't want to be below 3, because if you're down at 2, then why not turn the wick up and move up here? Because if you go from 2 to 3, you increase your achievement and you increase your quality of life. It's a no-brainer to do that. You'd be crazy to be at 2. Laziness tempts us to being down at 1 and 2, but actually we're happier if we work a little bit harder and move on up to 3. So really the question is, do you want to be a quality of life maximizer at 3, or do you want to be an achievement maximizer at 7? And I don't think there's a right answer about that. I think it depends on what your personality is like, and you will know from yourself whether you get more satisfaction from achieving or enjoying. But I haven't quite finished, because I want to say that this is fairly flat across the top here. So if you are an achievement maximizer, it might make more sense to be at 6 rather than at 7. Because you could see the difference between 6 and 7. There's a big, significant increase in the quality of life for only a tiny sacrifice in achievement. So if you want to be the world champion or something, you probably have to go to 7. But for most of us, to go to 6 would be very nearly as much achievement and a much better quality of life. So is it worth giving up all of that in order to get a slight bit more of achievement? And quite often that last bit of achievement is just ego. So just let that go and have a more enjoyable quality of life. And similarly over here it's pretty flat. So if you're a quality of life maximizer, why not go from 3 to 4 and just pay a small price on your quality of life to achieve quite a bit more? And that would seem to be a more sensible place. I would argue that 4 is more sensible than 3. And similarly 6 is more sensible than 7. So I think the acceptable range really is between 4 and 6. And the question is, where do you want to be between 4 and 6? I can't answer that for you, but I hope this is a useful model for you and it helps you to think about where you are at the moment in your life. Are you being a bit crazy? Are you at 8 or 9, which is definitely not sensible? Are you being too lazy down here at 1 or 2, which is also not sensible? Or are you at 3 or 7? And would it be worth moving from 3 to 4? Or would it be worth moving back from 7 to 6 perhaps? And then for your future career, for all the years to come, are you going to aim to be a 6 type person? Or are you going to aim to be a 4 type person? Or are you going to swing between them? Maybe you're going to work really hard at 7 for a while and then you're going to go for your early retirement and get to 3 or something like that. I've been at 6 or 7 quite a while now and I'm trying to cut back and go more to 3 or 4 as I get a bit older. I'm thinking rather than retire suddenly, I'm going to just gradually do this. So I've been pushing back recently, doing a bit less, and I'm trying to move it round to 4. That's my plan. Now you may say I've got no control of where I am on this, But I actually think you do have quite a bit of control, because within a job, you've got a choice about how ambitious you want to be, how hard you want to work. You've also got a choice over jobs you choose in the future, whether you want to choose a job that you know is going to be at 7 or 8, or whether you want to choose a relatively easier job that's at 5 or 6, more within your comfort zone. And then whether you're doing a side hustle or extra things in your spare time, even just how busy you are in your spare time also affects where you are on the stressometer. So I think you do have a choice over where you want to be on this graph. And I can't tell you where you particularly want to be, but I think it's really interesting to think about yourself. Certainly I always have this graph in my mind when I'm thinking about where do I want to be, where am I trying to push my life next. So I find this really helpful, and I hope that you will too.
Live your maximum life.